What is going on with this country, folks? It really is absolutely ludicrous. I go away for 4 days and I come back and see that the Online Safety Act has done just some absolute insane crap on the internet. So, this is from Spiked and it was actually put out this morning. Why the Online Safety Act is even worse than you think. Matthew Lesh on the authoritarian horrors still to come from the UK's new censorship regime. The age verification phase of the UK's Online Safety Act has been enforced for just over 2 weeks, and already vast swaths of the internet have gone dark to the majority of users. Absolutely nuts, it really is. Although the new rules are supposed to protect children from adult material, in practice a great deal of obviously harmless content is being censored. Yeah, we are seeing so much stuff out there being censored, where even if you just put in Gaza, or gangs and all this kind of stuff. Hell, you even got some of the official government websites where you want to look up a specific investigation, you have to do age verification. What the hell? A great deal of the obvious harmless content is being censored. Worse still, this is only the second phase of the Act's implementation, which met with many more rules, duties and restrictions on the way, folks. Great. This is going to be amazing for us. So Matthew Lesh, the country manager at Freshwater Strategy, sat down with Fraser Myers for the latest episode of the Spike podcast to discuss the Online Safety Act's terrifying implications for free speech and privacy. What follows is an edited version of the conversation, and the full episode is here. I will leave a link to this down below, folks, for you. So, Fraser, what kind of content have you seen being censored that obviously shouldn't be? The requirement to remove material which could be considered psychologically harmful to children has led to the restriction of vast swaths of the content, and not just adult material. This is very much what the Act intends. If you read Ofcom's guidance, it says to remove anything that could be considered, say, violent. So we've seen a lot of material removed in relation to the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. Yeah, we tried looking for it ourselves over the weekend, and nothing was popping up. And I'm like, my account is like 20 years old. My Google email, the one I use and everything else, it's like this should be there for me. But no, I had to do age verification, so I shut it down and opened up a Brave browser. And it says obviously a lot of which is certainly horrific, but also educational and informative. It is. We've seen Katie Lamb, a Tory MP, have a parliamentary speech about the gangs removed from social media, even though she was quoting from court transcripts. Users of X will have been met repeatedly with the warning, due to laws in your country, this material has been hidden until we estimate your age. But if you use a VPN, you can actually see all this stuff without having to put your age in. Just saying. Defenders of the Online Safety Act have tried to say this is down to bugs or that something has gone wrong with how it is being implemented. But the reality is that this is exactly what the Act implies and what Ofcom expects of the tech companies. The penalties levied on companies that don't comply are extraordinary. When threatened with vast fines, they were always likely to censor first and ask questions later, weren't they? Yeah. So with this here, it does go into it, but we saw the other day that if a company or a website gets found out that it's not doing these sort of checks, they can be fined up to 10% of their annual revenue. And that's just for one thing. So say 100 people went onto a site and none of this, kicked in. That's literally 100% that they have to pay. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. But then Lesh said, indeed, we're looking at fines up to 10% of annual global revenue for tech companies that break the rules. That is billions of pounds in some cases. The Act gives companies an extensive set of safety duties, an expectation that they're going to prevent people from accessing certain types of content, and if they fail in those duties, they will be punished severely. Some tech execs might have even faced criminal sanctions and jail time if they're unresponsive to Ofcom orders. So with that there, you could literally go on Twitter and say you wanted to look up, say, Ukraine or Gaza, and it comes up with age verification, you don't do it. Oh my god, say you bypass it somehow. The tech company can get sued. Well, not sued, can get fined 10% of their annual global revenue. Imagine Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube. Like they said, it is literally billions of pounds. And some of these executives could get jail time because of that. Nah, this is so bad. The UK government, with all of this, they literally have no idea what they're doing. They literally don't. Now, whatever you think of Elon Musk, he has generally tried to oppose government diktats to remove content. But in this case, I think X is acting in the most prudent, legally justifiable way. Which, you know, it could be hiding a lot of content from British users that might be considered harmful to children. This is regardless of whether the content is obviously educational, and even despite the fact that in the not-too-distant future, 16 and 17-year-olds are meant to be able to vote. Yeah, that's the one thing that really pisses me off. They want to lower the voting age, but if you want to see a pair of boobies, you have to be over the age of 18. Even though in this country, 16 is the legal age for that to be done. It's absolutely insane, it really is. This is the great irony, of course. We're telling these teenagers that they can't have access to the material on which they might wish to base their political decisions. It is fundamentally undemocratic, which it is. All of this is happening under Phase 2 of the implementation of the Act. Could you tell us what is still to come? Something that's not particularly understood even by advocates of the Online Safety Act, that is explicitly envisages quite an expansive regime of censorship for adults. So, this right by here, even the people who are advocating, who are for this Online Safety Act, they have no idea or they don't understand what's about to happen. That does not sound good in my eyes. Well, it's these ears, not eyes. You know, it doesn't look good in my eyes. To be honest with you, that makes the people who are advocates for this just sheep. Just followers. What we're seeing now is the age verification phase. For those who are unwilling to prove their identity, they could lose access to information. Freshwater did a recent poll on how people are going to respond to age gating, and about 1 in 4 said they would just exit the website. That's 1 in 4 people who will not access the information. Yeah. So with that by there, you are going to have people who are just not going to bother with it anymore. Last week I did one regarding PlayStation, regarding Xbox and all this, because Xbox starts in January of next year. This whole Online Safety Act, age verification and all this nonsense. And then you got Spotify, which in America is asking for age, which is like, what? You know, Grand Theft Auto, that's going to be doing it. But to be honest with you, when you see things like that, if a game is rated 18 plus or 16 plus, you can't blame the companies for that. If kids are playing it, you can't. You go after the parents. This is what it is. If the parents have not made their child understand certain ages, require certain things, or that the parents not looking or seeing what their kids are doing, which is what, you know, they are calling these generations now, like the iTablet, you know, era and all this nonsense, because parents do not know what their kids are watching. They just don't. They just think they're looking at a screen, oh, they're fine. They're not bothering me. But these websites, you know, you're going to see so much going under, it's going to be crazy. Even if the remaining 75% ultimately comply, they are still only going to receive a censored version of the internet, because the duties in the Act that relate to illegal content are very widely drawn. It expects companies to remove anything that they have reasonable grounds to infer is illegal. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but the lawyers I speak to say that's hogwash. This simply is not a reasonable legal standard. This definition would result in a lot of content being censored automatically at speed, usually using AI systems, which is, it's just not going to work. It's just not. So at a base level, we're just going to see a lot more censorship of digital platforms in an effort to comply with these laws. Yeah, there's so many things going on, it's just absolutely ludicrous. But as you can see, just going on, that it says if you submit your ID, you're still only going to get a kid's version of the internet. Yes, it will create a more restricted version of the internet for everyone. So even if you do provide your age, that you are over the age of 18, that, you know, yo, here we are, I'm, you know, saving the kids, protecting the kids and all this kind of stuff, you're still going to get a restricted version of the internet. This isn't going to help anyone. But as you can see down by here, that another huge concern, that obviously private messaging. All the same duties apply to messaging platforms. Ofcom even has the power to force platforms like WhatsApp, Signal, and Telegram to install software for the purposes of preventing people from being able to share child exploitation material. To be honest with you, that there should have been implemented years ago when they first started all this stuff, but that is going to get rid of end-to-end encryption for people who just value their privacy. You know, there's laws that you're not allowed to take photos in bathrooms with other people, but this is fine. We want your photo though. What the hell? On the face of it, this sounds completely reasonable. The problem is that this would effectively bring an end to the end-to-end encryption of private messages. These would all have to be checked against some kind of central database. WhatsApp has been quite clear that it would exit the UK market if the government asked it to start spying on its users in this way. I think the fact that Ofcom has that power, even if it's dormant for now, causes some quite serious problems for how we communicate. It is. If WhatsApp, Signal, and all these other places, they leave the UK, it's going to be a nightmare for a lot of things. It really is. And you're going to see so much more of these private websites coming up. If you want to get on this website, if you want to host everything or whatever, pay for the service. But seeing this, doing an end to the end-to-end encryption of private messages, that means anyone who works for companies can look at your stuff. Now we know that this goes on with governments and everything else, but now they're just doing it in front of people's faces and laughing at us. They really are. But this is bad. It really is. And I can only see horrible things happening. The government is going to, have a revolution against them. It really is. Because everything that's happening in this country so far, so bringing over the illegal immigrants, then these illegal immigrants are going out there causing all of this nonsense and crime and doing these horrible acts to people, which again is all over social media because people are recording all these things going on to show what is happening. The police are going against their own British public. What the fuck, It's absolutely disgusting. It's absolutely terrible. And this is another way just to be like, you can't say this, you can't do that, you can't do this, we're going to arrest you because, well, you got a different opinion to us. That's what this is. And it's going to be their downfall, it really is. Let us know what you think about this down below, folks, about do you want end-to-end encryption to be gone? I don't. Even though I just send memes and jokes and just talk shit amongst my friends, that is what it's for. We don't want people looking in and being like, send the police around his house because he sent a meme that could be dark humor. It's the thought police. It really is. Like I said, folks, let us know down below what you think of this. If you are new to the channel, like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for all future updates, folks, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.